nice to be with you today. My name is Tony Ruesing. We're going to talk about relationship management. Now, if you know one person you're in a relationship, how you manage it is something entirely different. According to Carl Rogers, we all have three needs: to love, be loved, and to feel worthwhile. If we keep that in mind, we have to say to ourselves, well, what if I make a mistake in a relationship? Yep, will you? You better believe it. We all do. But here's what we know about mistakes. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never really tried anything new. And if you keep that in mind, there's some real value there. The value is in the fact that when we make a mistake, it's an oops. It's a, oh, well, I'll do better next time. We're going to talk about some things today. And my hope is for the outcome for you is that it'll be fun for you, that it'll be engaging, entertaining, and memorable. And the things that we remember, we have a tendency to repeat. So that's what we hope happens for you today. And if you will, if you'll just subscribe to my podcast, or if you like us on Facebook, I would really appreciate that. Let's get started. According to Peter Drucker, and I want to read exactly what he said, knowing your strengths is how you learn and think, and acting on this knowledge is the key to performance. Now, he was talking about that in a leadership or a management setting, in a work setting, but truth is, it's a high value piece of information in all kinds of relationships. When we know our strengths, we know the things that we're capable of, we do a much better job of managing everything else in our life. So there are many competencies to develop, and we develop them over time. So I hope you tune in again and hear some of these being described in more depth, but I'll just give you an example of what we're saying when we say competencies. Empathizing, handling stress, those are two. Listening actively. We've said something like that in one of our previous podcasts. Working as a team. If you are in a work environment or if you're in a family and there's 3 or 4 in the family, you're on a team. And that's what we have to be conscious of, how we build our confidence in those situations and build the loyalty of a common goal, even in a family. We're going on vacation, the common goal is to get there and enjoy ourselves. And we do that by bringing everyone's needs and wants into the picture. So demonstrating mental alertness is another important competency that we need to develop, and demonstrate the ability to make decisions. So we're not going to be able to cover all of that in this time we have together today. What we can do is talk about one of them specifically. So let's look at the competency problem solving. Problem solving is recognizing first that a problem exists. In a relationship, that's huge. If you recognize that the relationship doesn't seem as warm and fuzzy as it used to be, that's the time to say, wait a minute, there may be a little problem here and we need to fix it. And I say we because we have to recognize that part of that problem is ours, and part of it that belongs to the other person in the relationship. How about reframing it as a challenge as opposed to a problem? There's a great start right there. Rather than seeing it as a problem, you see it as a challenge, something that you want to work through and overcome. And it releases a lot of frustration, and it gives you the opportunity to really focus on solutions to the challenge that you face. And you can move on to the next challenge. And that's how we keep relationships going for us. And we have to contribute to them and recognize that when a problem exists, you reframe it, you release it, the idea that it's a challenge, and you start looking at it not as a problem, but something that can be fixed. That being the case, it's a little bit true that right now there's a lot of change going on. According to Eric Hoffer, in a time of drastic change, it is the learners who inherit the future. The learned find themselves equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. I'm suggesting that we have to be lifelong learners. I'm suggesting that relationship and relationship building and management is a lifelong process as well. So there are 5 things to do more of, in my opinion. You maintain an attitude of gratitude in all things. You choose wisely more often the behavior you're going to participate in, and you listen more with your whole body, especially in a relationship where you have to communicate more effectively. That's just what life is. And finally, just ask more questions. That can be really a terrific way to take a personal step in really developing your ability to manage yourself and relationships more effectively. So be yourself and be your best self more often, and be positive about yourself and value your contribution to the overall effort that you and this other person are putting into this relationship, and make others feel special. Give them encouragement. Find them or catch them doing the right things as opposed to the things that aren't so right. And this will help that person feel special about themselves, because you, in turn, are feeling special about yourself as well. And that's important. So under promise and over deliver is my opinion. We always need to over deliver under promise. I know when I take on a project, it always takes longer than I thought it would. Smiles plus systems, I think, are a real help to us in building relationships. So we have to have smiles in all of the things that we do. And think in friendly terms. There are lots of ways to think, and there are a lot of people that get anxious, and then the worry comes on their face, and then the worry comes into the sound of their voice. But if you think friendly, there's a real value to that. And stay committed to the relationship. You see, when we're in a relationship and we're contributing to that relationship and we want that relationship to work, it's all about how much we're willing to put into it that'll make the difference. You have one energy, and when you take that energy and you start putting it where you put it every day, you're responsible for the image that energy puts forth. And your daily activities, all of them, give you a sense of purpose, and you have to have purpose in relationships as well. You know, most of the organizations depend on you to do your best. So if you're in a work environment, you want to do your best. And be able to do that, you have to put your energy where it counts. And it counts on the goals and objectives of the organization and how they fit into the goals and objectives that you have. So stay on purpose and be aligned and be committed to the goals of the organization and make sure that they do align with yours. You know, jobs do not have meaning. Only people doing jobs well have meaning. And on the job, where relationships, and you work with people in and out every day, in many cases, you work and spend more time with them than you do in personal relationships. So it's extremely important to manage all of them more effectively. So ask more questions. I said that that's an important way to really develop your ability to create a relationship that has a loyalty factor to it. Remember that when friends come to you and they're vulnerable and they're complaining or they're conscious of something that's frustrating them, they may be sharing that with you because they can trust you. And so there's some real value to that. And you want to treat everyone with dignity. You want to be a great listener. Get it right the first time if you can, but that's not a realistic goal because, as I said, we're all going to make mistakes. But what we do is we own them. My mistake, when you say my mistake, when you say I own this, or I own these feelings, you're saying something that's sincere and honest. Be consistent in all the things you say and do, and practice empathy. That's one of the real competencies, being able to express it and actually understand other people by paying attention to what they say to you. We're always establishing rapport, and with some people that's easier to do than with others. And we want to emphasize the fact that rapport is being able to make this connection and then help grow it. Because it has to grow if it's going to thrive. And it can only thrive if you have rapport with someone. And rapport means that you're paying more attention to them than you are yourself in that interaction. And act with urgency when you're asked to do something. If a friend asks you to do something or a coworker asks you to do something, the more urgency that you put into it, recognize that if they've asked you to do it, it's important to them, and your urgency tells them that it's important to you as well. And deliver every time you make a promise. And don't make promises that you can't keep. Take the initiative to really recognize what someone is asking of you and then determine whether or not that's going to fit into what you're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to accomplish as well. I want to repeat one of these I think is really important. Keep your promises. It's so important to keep your promises. Think of it this way. In all the relationships you're in, you wear a lot of hats. One of the hats is you've got to be a good communicator. And sometimes relationships require public relations. And as I said, instead of problem solving and being a problem solver, you want to be a challenge solver. And there's a real value to that. Watch for the speed bumps in relationships. They're always there. That slows us down, makes us just a little bit more aware of how important a relationship is to us. Sometimes we are psychologists in the relationships that we're in. We have to remember that as well. I would also say that there are times when in a relationship, someone's going to try to persuade you or you're going to try to persuade them, and that's a hat that you're going to wear. Do that well. Stay away from manipulation. That's not a good idea, but persuasion is. And then be an educator and a translator. When you're asking these questions and you're really listening, what you're doing is trying to interpret what's being said to you. And when that happens, there's value in that as well. You know, Albert Einstein said, one should not pursue goals that are easily achieved. One must develop an instinct for what can barely be achieved through one's greatest effort. And I believe that the greatest effort we have in our lifetime is to build and develop relationships that are long-lasting. Has to be a value in your life, and values are anything of significance or worth or importance to you, and you have to be and see the value in other people as well. Sound values are those in alignment with reality, and some people you're not going to be able to have as much of a close relationship as you'd like to have possibly, but what you can always do is treat them well. And what about others' values? They may not necessarily be your values, but what you want to be able to do is recognize that they're important to them, and you want to focus on helping them reach their goals and objectives. You want to help them and recognize and honor their values. And all of this about relationship management is decisions that we make. We decide to do this, we decide not to do this, whatever that may be. So we would always do, and this is something to really think about. We always do what we would rather do than not do. And if we remember that and we remind ourselves of that, it'll help us a lot in all the relationships that we have. And on any given day, you decide where you're going to spend your time, your money, and your energy. And so I'm going to suggest to you that it really is important for you to recognize that with that one energy that you have, the money and the time that go into those 3 decisions every single day are important to you. So simply stated, you have to decide and ask yourself this question. Can I build on my relationship skills that I already bring to the table? And can I put that in play when it comes to making decisions, when it comes to communicating, when it comes to asking questions, when it comes to empathizing, all of the pieces that we've been describing here? If you're able to make all of that work for you, it's because you are indeed a lifelong learner. You're always wanting to do just a little bit better the next time. And when that's in place, there's a real benefit to you and the other person. One more thing I would tell you before we stop here today, don't forget to celebrate. Celebrate incrementally, celebrate final victories, commemorate achievements, and that is as true in relationships as it is with anything else. But you do that celebration silently sometimes, just on your own. Treat yourself well and you will be able to treat others as well. Talk to you again. Look forward to it. Tony Ruesing, and watch my podcast, sign up, and give us a like on Facebook. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.